having the frequencies which is for the green color, that frequency only will pass, and as sensing material will get that only that waves, it will generate the output which is in proportion with only green color, so that we will come to know where the green color is high, kind of thing, right? So this was the one that we discussed. So the same thing again is repeated here. Various intensities are coming, various energy is coming from here, and keep in your mind this energy is what? Which energy it is? It is the energy from it is combination of two energy, like energy which is coming from the source, that incident energy and reflected energy. Both of them, they if incident energy is higher, then reflection will be proportionately higher, right? And so actually what we are receiving is not only the reflected energy but also the incident energy. Okay, so that is all things. These all things we have already discussed. So these are the filters. Whichever filter you want to keep, if you want a filter which will just pass infrared, then you can keep it like so. Or you want that only color filter should be passed. According, that is your, again, as I told, it is your application. So this is what we have discussed last time, right? So again, this is the conclusion of any data acquisition system. Here we are acquiring the image, right? But in general, this is for any data acquisition system. This is the block diagram. What it is? First, some phenomena occurs, like intensity falls on the object, and it is reflected back. So that is physical phenomena, right? That is given to sensors. Of course, that is our lenses and the image sensors. So transducers, and they what they will do, what the sensor does, that it converts the energy, incoming energy, into the form of voltages, right? Then some modifications of, if you want to amplify, if voltages are not sufficient to understand, then you can amplify, then you can modulate, you can change, you can do some processing on the signals received from the sensor. You want to remove the noise, you can remove the noise, right? So many other methods, signal processing you can do here. Okay, so now after exactly what I'm having here, so here you what you should keep in your mind. So what exactly is happening here? Okay, so now think, now we are going for the next step of the block diagram. But now tell me, if now question is to you. Suppose incoming energy, I'm sending some incoming energy, but this object absorbs everything. How it should look? It should look me white or it should look me black? Are you getting the question? Yes, it should look black, right? It should look black. So exactly what is happening here? Suppose so now think on the physical things. Now physical phenomena. Energy is bombarded, everything is absorbed. So outcome received energy is very less. So if received energy is very less, my output voltages are very less, near to zero, and those near to zero values should be mapped with digital value zero, so that I can come to know, okay, this is black intensity or near to zero intensity. That's why it will be black. Okay, that's why zero is considered with the black, right? Because what is the meaning here? That because black is the object where everything is absorbed, so received energy by the sensor is very less, and hence now what sensor does, whatever is received, according to that voltages are generated, because very less voltage, very less intensity is received, very less voltages are generated, which are near to zero, and hence whenever I will, so it can be 0, 0.1, 0.12, 0.223, whatever. It can be any number, but it will be very less, right? So your two observation: if voltages are if object is absorbing everything, I'm going to get less voltages, and voltage can take any value. It can be 0, 0.0001. It can be any value, right? Okay, it can be any value, right? So that is one observation that I have to that I made right now. Now second thing is what? Okay, now suppose it is reflecting everything. So what received energy will be very high. So corresponding voltages will be very high, and corresponding value that I will have in the digital will be very high. That is 255. That is my maximum limit. Right. So that's why that black and white color everything comes into picture. Now here, what is our observation? What we observed is we can have that I can my sensor can generate voltage zero. Then my sensor can generate voltage 0.01. It can generate very high voltage. Say 5 volt is the maximum voltage that is generated by a sensor. Suppose maximum voltage is 5 volt that is generated by sensor. So it is possible that for the white object I am receiving like 4.9999, right? So how many bits I will need to store those voltages? How many bits I will need to store? Suppose I want to store it in the computer, na? I want to ultimate process it with the computer. So how many bits I will need to process it? Are you getting? How many values I have to store? Can you tell me how many values I will need? So say suppose I say I have to store eight data, eight values, different values, eight different values. How many bits I will need? Suppose I can tell you that okay, you have to yes, you have to suppose I say different eight values you have to store, you will need 3 bits. Okay, so now if I can know how many different values I have to store, I will come to know okay, to store this many values, I will need this many bits. How many values in our system where voltages can be generated 0, 0.0001, any value? How many intensities we want to store? Yes, they are infinite. That's true. Your answer can be infinite, right? The answer. So you can have any value, right? From 0 to 5. Your answer is infinite. That's true. From 0 to 5, my sensor can generate any value because they are analog sensors. They can generate any value, right? They can value and they generate any value. But I cannot store them. I cannot store them. So what I have to do is from 0 to 5, if I have suppose I want to store it using suppose I have to define that okay, I will store 10 different values. I have to decide that because I have to digitize it. I cannot store all the values, infinite bits, otherwise we will need it. Infinite values are to be stored, right? So yes, we have to map it to finite. That's true, and that is analog to digital conversion. What is analog? It can take any value. What is digital? It will have finite value, right? It will have finite value. So I have to convert it into digital so that I can store it into computer, right? So now what I will do from 0 to 5 volt it is. Suppose I say I will store 10 different values. Okay. So what can be 10 different values? So what I will do? Okay. So I have to divide the entire range into 10 different intervals. What will be the 10 different intervals? So 0 to zero point 0.5, zero point 0.5 to 1, 1 to 1.5, 1.5 to 2. In that way, if I will go for, I will have 10 different intervals. Okay, and suppose my value falls between 0 to zero point 0.5, I will map it to say 0.25, mid value of the interval. That is my scheme. That can be your scheme. Your scheme can be different, right? Suppose my value is 0 0.1, 0 0.0001, 0. Uh, any value if I'm having in the what we can say in the range of 0 to zero point 0.5, I will map it to 0.25. Suppose then other values are from zero point 0.5 greater than zero point 0.5 to 2 equal to 1, right? In that range, if any value comes, I will map it to 0.75. So what I actually did, the 0 to 5 range, entire range, I can write it here. From 0 to 5, convert it into 0 to zero point 0.5, that is one interval, zero point 0.5 to 1, then 1 to 1.5, then 1.5 to 2. In that way, I converted into 10 different intervals. Then, in suppose any value between 0 to zero point 0.5 will be mapped to 0.25, then next value will be mapped to any value, suppose it is 0.66, then I will map it to 0.75. Definitely, we are losing the information here, but that is how I can store, right? So that is how I can deal with it. Otherwise, I cannot store all the values. Whenever I am converting analog signal into digital, I am going to lose the data. Suppose it is 0.66, I am making it 0.75 because it is in the range of 0.5 to 1. I am making it 0.75. Definitely, I am losing the data, right? But that is only the way I can have, right? So, same way 1.25, then 1.75. I hope you can understand. In that way, I will have 10 different values. So whatever value falls in a particular interval should be mapped to what in mid. Suppose it is mid, you can take lower limit, you can take higher limit. That is your choice. Okay. So this process is known as quantization. What is quantization? Entire range of amplitude is available. If your amplitude can take 0 to 5, you are just dividing into discrete intervals and then decide one value for the interval. If value falls in that interval, the decided value should be kept instead. So now only limited values will required to be stored. Right? So this is what quantization process is. Of course, we will take it in detail, but using this detail, now what will happen? Now I have 10 different values, right? Suppose I have value 0, 0, suppose I am storing 0, 0, 0, 0, which will correspond to 0.25. Then if I store 0, 0, 0, 1, it will correspond to 0.75. In that way I can store. That way I can store. So only 4 bits are needed to store those values. Okay, or you can so that is how you can go for digitization. So what is our conclusion here? That once I have my signal, I need to convert it in digital because any value I cannot store, and then I have to use it to, then I have to give it to display. For the display and then processing, post processing in case needed. So then I will display it. Of course, we are going to these two steps. These two are remaining. We are going there. Okay. So now, but we will take step by step. All the steps we will take in detail. First, I will go for sensors. We will take all the steps in detail. We are going for this. But quantization process, I think, is clear to all. Still, we will take with examples. It will be even more clear. Okay. So now, what is sensing? Sensing is as I told you, I suppose I have this is my lens image. That image of the tree is projected on this plane. This is that plane. Okay, and this is zoom version of that plane. What I want is I want to sense each and every location here. This is actually I just what I did. I just separated out into. I just used the grid to separate out the locations here. What I want to sense this location. I want to sense entire here tree will be there. So I want to sense that what is the intensity received at this point, what is the intensity received at this point. So what I will see this plane as one plane with the grid, right? I will see this image plane as plane with grid, and I will think that okay, I have to sense here, I have to sense here, I have to sense entire plane using my sensors so that I can come to know at each and every point in my plane what is the received intensity. Suppose it is okay. So what is the intensity? So what are the options I have? Suppose I am having this type of sensor. So what it will just sense the energy bombarded in this area, in this area. But it will be very small area. It is like LDR. I think we have gone through this LDR and all those. We have discussed that, right? So you know that the LDR is very small. So it will just occupy or it will just respond to energy in certain small area. So what I will think that sensor will sense this much area, sensor will sense this much area, and hence I will need this many sensors here. Okay. So or if I have just if I want to use the single sensor, I just want to use single sensor. What are the options I have? I will sense here first. Then I will sense here. I will move my sensor. Then I will move my sensor here. Then I will sense the value. I will note the value. I will go here. I will sense the intensity here. Then I will note the value. Then I will go here. So that is how I can go for. First of all, I will sense here. So I know that LDR can sense very small regions. It is sensed by this LDR. Then what I will do? Then I will go for the next. This is sensed. So I will sense this now. And I will note down that value. Then I will go for this. So this is how the entire region will be sensed. Once that entire row is completed, then it will go for the next row. In that way, entire it will move like this. Then for all the rows and for all the columns, one sensor is going to move on X and Y direction, and you will be able to sense your region. You will be able to sense your image plane. And you will come to know okay, in the entire image plane what is the intensity received. According to that, you will have the voltage level for this location, for this location, for this location, for every location here, and those values will map to some weak value. Say this is point 2, then this will map to 0000 location. This will map to 0000 value. Right? In that way, you will do for all. So this region will act as a pixel for you, and for this pixel value, you will have one intensity value, which will be equivalent to the voltages received, which will be in proportion with the intensity voltages received. Does it making sense to you, or should I repeat it? Is it making sense to you? Should I repeat the last process? Okay. So now, true, understood. Now, what we is it clear, Jaimin and Dharya? Is it clear, or should I repeat? Dharya, Jaimin, your yes is for clear or yes is for repeating? Okay, repeat. Okay, fine. So, fine. So, what exactly I have here is up to analog. Of course, these steps we will go for each steps. Now I am starting for this step. If you are not clear with this, of course, when the time comes, you will be clear with it, right? Don't worry about the steps if you are not clear with. I am starting with this. What I am doing is energy is coming from the source. It is received by So it is concentrated using a lens to one image plane. Okay. Now on image plane, I have to sense the incoming energy which is in form of light, and I have to generate equivalent voltage. Up to that, any doubt? Incoming energy is coming, lens is okay, fine, good. So what I have to using sensor on this image plane, whatever energy is coming, I have to generate equivalent voltage of that. Okay. So now that sensor, what can be that sensor? Sensor can be LDR. LDR is what? Light dependent resistor, right? So that resistor can sense smaller area. It can sense smaller area because you know that how they are very small in size, so that they can sense the light bombarding on them, but they are very small in size, and hence they can sense for the smaller area. But what I want to sense is, I don't want to sense smaller area. I want to sense entire plane. This is entire image plane. This is your lens, and the image is formed on this page, on this plane. And here I want to sense entire plane. So suppose I have just one LDR and I do tell you to sense this entire plane. What will you do? What is your common idea to do? I will tell you, just there is one LDR. So what the LDR will do? LDR will sense, suppose it is sensing this much area only, this much region only. Okay, so what you will do, you will put your LDR here first. Then you will sense whatever the light is. So suppose light coming on this area is high, then output voltage will be high. That voltage value you are going to write. Suppose that voltage value is say it is high, na? So we are saying it is say let us keep it like it is zero point 0.6, high or low, whatever. Suppose it is zero point 0.6. The voltage value that is equivalent to generated equivalent to this is zero point 0.6, right? It is say zero point 0.6, and here it is say so then you have sensed this and you have noted down that value. Say it was zero point 0.6. Here it was say it is the some sensor value sensed here is say 4.6. It is high. Here it was low. Here it is high, right? Okay. Same way you will come here. You will sense here. Whatever light is falling in this region, because actually here energy is concentrated. The light is concentrated in this entire region, in this on this plane. Now you are imagining this region as a plane with a grid. On the each square, you are putting your LDR here, and you are sensing the area, that how much light is falling in this area, because my LDR can cover certain areas. So now no need to cover immediate after that. I can cover here so that I can come to know, okay, what is the light falling in this area. In that way, I am going to move my LDR for all the pixels. I'm going to, I mean, I will move my LDR for all these lines. Then I will, after completing my first row, I will go for the next row, then next row. I will complete the entire plane because I'm just having one LDR, and using that one LDR, I want to sense my entire plane. What is my output of this sensing? The voltage level that is available here. It can be 4.66, it can be 4.8, it can be 2, any value, right? Then what I will do? Those voltage values I am going to map according to that quantization that we discussed. Suppose it is zero point 0.6, then it will fall in the range of 0.6 to 1, and hence it should be mapped to 0.75. 0.75 means how many, what bits I will need to represent 0.75? 0001. That means this pixel value will be 0001. Same way here it was 4.6. It will fall in the range of 4.5 to 4.5 to 5, and that's why it will be 4.75 value, which is quantized value. 4.6 I am mapping it the value with the 4.75, and 4.75 is having equivalent bit value that I know that 000 is 0.25, 0001 is 0.75, 0010 is 1.25. In that way, if I will go for 0001, I mean 1010 will be for 1 point, I mean 4.75. So equivalent bit value for this will be 10. Equivalent bit value for this will be 1. In that way, I will have all the bit values here. So actually, what if you will think, this region is acting as a pixel for me, and it is now having the value from 0 to 10, because I have converted my entire range 0 to 5 to 10 discrete intervals. Now, is it making sense, or should I take the values? Okay, and the area. Okay, so okay, that's good. So now, so in that way, so what I did here, I just used single sensor, and I kept it moving here in the horizontal direction. Then vertical, after completing horizontal direction, I go for the next one. Then I went for the next one. In that way, I completed for all. right? So that is how I completed for. So actually x and y direction movement of my sensor. Here I sense, then next sense, then next, and that way I completed the row, and then I went for the next row. I will complete the next row, then again I will go for the third row. In that way I will sense entire. That is method one. Move in x and y direction. See, here what we are assuming that, see, if our lens is quite focused. Ashutosh is asking till, see, this is not the actual one that we are implementing. This is hypothetical one that if we have a single one, how we will treat it. Understood. So we will not implement it actually. This is not real-time implementation. First thing. Secondly, here what if you are assuming that you are implementing it in real time, then what is your assumption here that your lens is concentrated on the same location, it is mounted rigidly fixed, and it is not your scene is not changing there. Okay. So if you want to think, if you are thinking it like real time sensor, it is not real time, so that's why it will not be matching with your concept that of regular images, right? But this is what the concept is. What I want to sense everything, but it is not possible through a single sensor having movement and moving in zigzag pattern. It is not possible, right? It will take much time. Even if scene is constant, then also it will take much time. Okay. So otherwise, if screen is changing, then of course you will have some that we have experienced, no? That if you are moving your sensors quickly and you get some mixed up, I mean very messed up image that we have already experienced. And if you take image in motion, that happens, right? So if you like if you it is possible that messed up image you are receiving in case you are anyway implementing this method and your scene is changing. Ashutosh. Okay, so as I just told that this is not possible method. I mean, this cannot be physically implemented, right? But anyway, if you want to implement, this is initially maybe someone thought this method that it can be implemented, but real time it's not possible, right? What I want is at the same time everything should be sensed. Then it will not be the problem, no? So what? So can I say actually I don't need one sensor and movement of that. Actually, I need array of sensors. If I have all, if I feel, if I keep my arrays here, if I keep LDRs here, if I keep my sensors here for each and every block, then it will work fine. As soon as light comes, everyone will sense, and for every sensor, I will have a reading, and all the readings are with me in one go, right? So that if I'm using array of sensors, then it is a good method. Then it is known as CCD method, charge coupled device method. That we will learn. This is like that. Entire plane is filled with the sensors. Instead of having one sensor, we will fill it with the sensors. And this is what actually is implemented. As soon as light comes, every sensor is activated, and they are generating voltages, and we will work with it. Okay, so this is 2D. 2D area of this sensor is required, and this is known as CCD. Okay, and that is what is implemented. Okay, but let's complete the single sensor method. So what is one method? One method is move your sensor in horizontal, then vertical direction. Another method, what can you suppose I anyway want to use a single sensor only? Then what is another method? I will move my sensor like this, but now I will not move my sensor in vertical direction. Instead, I will rotate this film. Suppose my film is on some drum. This is my suppose some photographic film. It is mounted on some drum. It is mounted on some drum. Okay, and then I am moving, and I am moving my sensor horizontal. That means it will sense this first. Then it will sense this first, and then I will move my roll. I will give the rotational movement here. I will give rotational movement here. So what will happen? This is, you can imagine, this is mounted over one, what you can say, drum. And if I'm moving my drum, rotating my drum, what will happen? It will simply move to my sensor strip, or sensor, not strip, but sensor movement will come so that this is in the center. So what we can think is, wherever you are taking the image, that plane can be placed on some. I mean that photographic film where you are taking it can be thought of on some rotational drum, and you are moving your sensors in one direction, and you are rotating your film. So ultimately, you are instead of vertical movement of your sensor, you are rotating. You are having rotational movement of your film, and your horizontal movement of sensor is done actually. So by rotational and horizontal movement of film and sensor, the same task can be completed. Here also, I will need just one sensor. What will happen? So I will sense this first in the horizontal line. I will move my sensor. Once I complete it, I will rotate the drum so that I will focus. I will come here. My sensor. This will go out, and this my sensor strip, which is fixed on the direction. It can just have horizontal movement. It cannot have vertical movement. It will focus on this line. Once I will complete it again, I will rotate the film, and my location will come here. I hope you can visualize it. Any doubt in this rotational? I hope you can visualize it. Any doubt in case you have these asked? Again, as I told you, it is not feasible actual method, but this is possible method. In case you want to do, you can go like this. Third method comes is what? Sensor strip. Don't use just one sensor. Instead, use sensor strip. What is the meaning of that? More sensors. Suppose I am using this many sensors. So in one go I will sense this, then I will move here. So in second go I will move this. So instead of having array, I am using vector kind of thing. Yes, 1D array. Yes, we are using vector. We can say we are using 1D array. So I will sense this entire one. Then I will. So here, but actually in the single sensor, I will have lot of movement of my sensor that I don't want. So that how to avoid. So best way is to use 2D array. But if I don't use it, so I will go for 1D array. So sense the first row, then go for the next row, then go for the next row. So instead of moving horizontally, you are just moving vertically. So that is the advantage, right? That is sensor strip that I can show you here. So it is quite logical. It is quite logical. See. So this is the image area where the image is there. So this is the sensor strip, multiple sensors in one line, like 1D array. Then you are moving it, the image, the area that where you want to sense, linear motion. Or what you can do is you can have rotational motion here also. Okay, what kind of motion it will be? What kind of motion it will be? This is my sensor strip. This I just folded my sensor strip. This is my sensor strip. Okay, and this is my object. So now what my sensor will sense, it will sense this, it will sense this. These are my sensors, rotated, or we can say what I should say, they are just okay. Here I have. So these are my sensors. These are my sensors, right? So this sensor, whatever is placed here, whatever sensors I have kept, they will sense this area. Here sensor will sense this area. Here my sensor will sense this area. I am not shown all the sensors, but entire sensors are sensing this region of my object. This is my object. So what exactly I am sensing of my object? I am sensing the cross-sectional area of my object. I have sensed this much area of my object because this is my sensor strip. Okay. So I sense this area, I sense entire this cross-sectional area I sense. Then this cross-section area is sensed. Then what to do? I have to move my object. So I am going to move the object so that next cross-section area will be sensed. Then I will move further. Then next cross-section area is sensed. Okay. So, but what exactly I am having? I am having cross-sectional areas. I am having cross-sectional areas. One cross-sectional area, next cross-sectional area, third. But from those cross-sectional area, I need entire image. So processing is needed. Reconstruction is needed. From the cross-sectional areas, so because my object is moving like this, right? So actually, you can think it's like MRI. MRI, what happens that whatever the patient goes into the system, and actually we can say patient's brain where we want to whatever the body part we want to do MRI. What we can go for, you can think is like the body is the human body is actually object and they are moving inside the region. So actually MRI, you can think of like my object is moving inside and the sensor strip is we can say they are sensing. Here you can say it is even it is written like it is X-ray. So what will happen? So my sense here, this is my X-ray source, and here my sensor strip is there. So my this region cross section area is there. Okay, so again, I have a strip of sensors. You can see it is sensor ring. Yes, so these are various way to sense. As I told you that in MRI and all those, it is useful. Okay, and this is what we discussed, and this is what charge coupled device or CCD method is actually used for sensing. And it is quite logical, quite simple, maybe costly than single sensor because so many sensors we have to use, right? But then anyway, but it is feasible. Otherwise, other methods are quite slow, noisy, not reliable methods. So we are going for this method. Generally, it is implemented. So what exactly will happen? There will be a source. There will be element on which the light will be there. Then it will be reflected back. Here, imaging system means your lens. Lens will be focusing. That energy will fall into image plane. Image plane can be thought of a gridded that gridded plane actually, and that grid. At each grid you can think of there is a sensor which will sense the voltages so that all the voltages are sensed. Now those voltages cannot be kept as it is because I cannot store all the values. I will not down I will not be able to store all the values in the computer, so I will digitize it. Digitize means what? I will quantize it actually, right? And quantize is that means definitely I'm going to lose the information, and this is how actually the image will be stored. And we will see how exactly this will happen. We will come to this point. This is remaining yet. But you can see this. What was the object? What we are storing? So you will say, okay, this is not the object that I captured. True, but we are losing the information I told you earlier even. We will lose the information. Right? But still it is quite quite understandable or quite good that we are still able to work with that. So that's always beneficial, right? So now tell me, okay, we will take the examples even better. You will understand. But this is basic imaging system. This is finally digitized output voltage, and what you will think of this is the small square will actually sensed area by a sensor is now behaving as a pixel because now it will have equivalent bit value. Okay, so this is actually theory written, so you should read it. It is ideally you should read it from the textbook, but in and before you approach the textbook, you can read the theory. But whatever is written, we have already discussed. So I'm not going through all the slides here, right? We are already everything is discussed. So now, which formation we have completed? Which part we have completed? So in this, yes, in this block diagram, we completed this sensors. We came to know about what the kind of sensors we have. So sensors can be arranged single sensor, they can be strip sensor, or they can be uh, array sensor, or we can say CCD sensor. Three type of arrangement of sensor possible. Now we are going here, physical phenomena. That is remaining here. What is physical phenomena? Already I told you. Suppose okay, so suppose it is so whatever energy you are receiving, it's not only the one which is coming from the source, but also it is from your object. See, whatever energy your sensor is receiving or whatever energy is used by the sensor is actually depending on two things. One is actual source, and another is reflection property of the object. Suppose my object is absorbing everything, every energy, then it will be black, right? So if my object can absorb everything, it may reflect everything. It may not absorb anything. So it will have some reflectance on every object. Every material will have reflectance, right? Suppose I am going for a velvet, then it will have a particular kind of absorption, or we can say it will have its property to reflect. But if I am going for that glass, it will have its own property to reflect. So there is one constant associated with it. It is reflectance. What is the meaning of that reflectance? Reflectance is having value from 0 to 1. 1 is indicating if I say my object or if my material is having reflectance 1, so it means that it reflects everything. And if I say it is having reflectance 0, what is the meaning of that? It is not reflecting anything, but it is absorbing everything. So there is a property reflectance, or we can say one constant reflectance associated with every material. It can be plastic, it can be metal, it can be everything. It can be your tree or everything. It in human body, everything. With everything, there will be um, yes, there is no absorb. See, absorb is again here now. If we can say no reflection means particular energy. Suppose I am going for RGB color and none of the color is reflected back. Then what we can go for? It will be black color kind of thing, right? So absorbing certain energy, and again, what we can say it is any material might not have zero reflectance; it will have very less reflectance, but it is definitely possible that it is having very less reflectance for particular kind of energy, right? So the point is what like we can so we have reflectance with every object. Okay. And for each object, so definitely received information or received waves are or received energy is dependent on the reflectance of the object. One thing. Second is, suppose I have same object, but if I'm capturing it in the daytime, or if I'm capturing in the night time, both of the time, my reflected output is different that you observe, right? You sometimes say, okay, let's start the flash. Why you are doing so? Because incident energy is less in the night time, and hence you need flash extra light so that it will be captured better, so that it will be reflected better. If you want to reflect, but some light must be there to reflect, right? So that's why what is the point here that whatever energy your sensor is behaving with, energy is receiving sensor is receiving some energy, but that energy is dependent not only dependent on the reflectance of this, but incident energy as well. How much energy your source is giving us, or in luminance, how much energy your source is giving us. So if I call that as I, that is incident energy in lumens, and if I call the materials reflectivity or as reflectance, that is reflectance is a constant, then it is from the study it is observed that energy which comes to the lens is that what we can say energy which comes to lens is given by the equation I into R. What is I? I is incident energy, R is reflectance. What is the range of what is the range of I into R for any given point, whatever the incident energy you have. For suppose I am taking this portion. If I am going for this, if I am going for this location, this will have suppose this is X and this is Y. So this grid can be the grid location. This can be given by XY, f of xy, right? So this f of x, or we can say whatever incident energy here, or whatever the incident energy for the entire scene into the reflectance of the material that is captured in this region, wherever it is mapping here, whatever the scene actually here. Suppose you have some scene here which is captured here. So in at that location actually, whatever the incident energy is into the whatever material you have at that point and its reflectance energy, whatever value comes, that much energy is received by your lens, and that equivalent voltage is generated by your imaging system, or we can say sensors, and hence it will be suppose voltages are generated more. That means it is a bright object, right? It is a bright object, and hence it will be white. It is absorbing more. That means received voltages are zero, and hence it will be black. That is just we discussed earlier, right? If it is the case, that means actually whatever voltages are coming, they are directly related with the intensity that we are generating. So actually, eventually, what we concluded here that intensity in the image, that can be white, it can be black, how it looks, right? That intensity is actually related with the incident energy or at that point, and reflectance of the property at that point, reflectance of the material at that location. Okay, and what is the so that this is the equation. That is how incident and or we can say what that intensity of the output image is going to relate with the physical things like this. Okay. So now and incident energy, we know that incident energy, we know what can be the incident energy. It can go up to 10 s to from 10 s to minus it can go from 10 s to minus 6 to 10 s to plus 6, if you remember that we discussed last time. What can be how what can be your incident energy, right? That we just discussed now here somewhere. Yes, here. What can be incident energy? It can be from -6 to +6. I told you that is in terms of log. Even more. Incident energy can go up to 10 raised to 6 or even more because it is in log. That's why it was from -6 to plus. So it can go from, you can have no incident energy to infinite incident energy. Your lumens, if you're measuring, you don't have limitation actually. Real time limitations will be there, but if you go for property wise, how much maximum energy you can reflect, that is not limitation, right? You can have lot of energy in lumens that uh, you can give it to your object. You can have that incident energy. So what is the range of your that incident energy? It can be from 0 to infinite. It can be as much high as you want. And what about reflectance? As I told you, reflectance will go from 0 to 1. As my suggested, it cannot be 0, right? It cannot be 0. It will be greater than 0. It will not be like everything is reflected, right? So it will be very small. It will be, if it is exactly 0, nothing will be visible. So it will not be the case. But we can say it can absorb particular color totally. That can happen. That can happen, right? So but it will not be like it will not sense all the colors and everything, right? But we can think of like it is sensing, it is reflecting very less. Actually 0 is the extreme case for the total absorption, and 1 is the extreme case of total reflection. But I think you can get the point. What is the significance of 0 and what is the significance of 1 here? Yeah, but of course we will not go to extremes. That is not possible. That's why the limitation is from uh, is greater than 0 and less than 1, not equal to 1. Right? Okay, so this is how image is formed. So what can be your value? Your value of the intensity actually, yet we have not converted into the voltage. We have not converted into the digital one. So my incident energy can be from 0 to infinite. From this intensity, my intensity can be 0 to infinite. Any intensity come, right? That is any, because my I can take any value from 0 to infinite. This can take any value from 0 to 1. So this can go up to infinite. Now this is the energy that is received by sensor. Now what sensor will do? Now sensor will convert it into equivalent voltages. Then they will convert it to 0 to 5 volt. Okay, so this 0 to infinite intensity is converted into 0 to 5 volt. Then from 0 to 5 also I cannot store. So further I will digitize. Further, I will digitize it. That is remaining step. Okay. So in my image, what will be my minimum intensity? My intensity in my image, or we can say input to my sensor, which will vary from L minimum to L maximum, where L minimum is minimum energy any point of time or any point of location, any location in my image into reflectivity. We can say reflectivity or minimum this product, wherever this product is minimum, like that, right? And in maximum value will be for my entire grid, wherever this product is actually maximum. Okay, so this can be the range. This can be the range, right? It is possible that my incident energy is maximum, and the reflectivity of the object where my maximum intensity is I am incidenting it. That also having maximum reflectance. So at that time, this L max is possible. But what is the point here? You will look at the entire image plane wherever minimum intensity is wherever the product is minimum to product is maximum, your intensity can vary from, and that is quite logical, quite obvious, right? So, okay, so now yet it is what is remaining. Whatever energy we are having, this L minimum to L maximum is to be converted to 0 to L minus 1 values. L minus 1 here is not related to, this L is actually related with the bit values that we will go to, we are going to that point. Okay, so now again we are here. What we have, suppose I'm just talking about the voltages sensed by this line here. By from A to B, I have sensors, right? I have A to B. I have sensors for the entire plane, but I am just considering sensors from A to B. So they will, for each sensor I will have voltage level. So I took this sensor and check its voltage level. Then I go for this. took this entire row and I plotted them. And this is what the scene that I obtained. This is what the graph, this is that graph that I obtained. Okay. So what how it is related? You can see from starting from A to some region, I am getting high voltages. This is actually you can say zero line. This is you can say maximum line. So you can say I for from zero it is quite fast. So I am getting very high voltages to some region. Why? Because here the incident energy will be very high because reflectance will be very low somewhere, right? So here you can see that here I am having very high voltages. Then my voltages are suddenly reducing because dark region came. So that incoming, because what is the meaning of dark region? Actually, the energy is absorbed, so incoming energy is less, and hence my output voltages are less. So my output voltage is less, but again, if you will see, the voltages are increasing because incident energy increases here. So for this sensor, if I will say it is having higher energy, so in that way I completed the entire voltage waveform. And again, you will see here it is having very high voltage. Okay. So these are the voltage levels. These are the voltage levels that I obtained from the sensor strip available here. I can do for entire image, that is fine, but I am just doing for the simplicity purpose. So I am doing for this. So now these are the voltage levels, right? Now they are noisy. If you want to remove the noise and you want to condition, you can go for the condition, right? You can go for the conditioning because these are sensors. So it is possible that they are having some noise values. So you can go for the condition of this voltage waveform. Okay. But suppose you are not going for, then what you have to do? Now you have to go for the storage. You have to store this. You have to store these values. Now, as we can see, it can take any value from minimum to maximum. So what I have to do? Um, so now what I will do? Here I will take. So this is the voltage waveform I will obtain for this line. Then I will do sampling first. So I will take sample here. Then I will take sample here. I will check what is the voltage. Suppose I am coming, I come to know it is say 4.6. I am coming to know because it is very high, so it is 4.6. Right? Same way, this is also 4.6. This is also 4.6. This is also 4.6. So I will say all these values are 4.6. Then suddenly I am coming here, and if I am taking sample here, what is the voltage value here? Then I will check. Okay, it is say 1.2. I am just taking this is 1.2. Right? Then I will check it here. I'm just randomly thinking. So I took sample here. It will be higher than this, right? So I will, if I will check, I will come to know it is at 3.2. It is at 3.2. Then I will come here. Say it is say even higher than the previous case, so it will be 3.5. I'm just taking random values, right? I'm just taking random values. So as I know that if I know that I can have any value here. If I will go for it can be say 4.122 possible. Huh? It can be 4.122. I can have any value. That's why I cannot store them in the computer. So what I will do, first of all, I will do samples. So I will find out whatever that is what I did. So I will take this sample, then I took this sample, then I took this sample, then I took. In that way, I will take the sample and I will note down. So this is one sample. If you can see, this is second sample, third, fourth, and I note down the value. Here, all four are having 4.6. Then this is having another. So this process is known as sampling. Take the different values and note them down. So I noted them down. Now what I will need is I have to convert them into the some range that I told you. Like suppose they are in the range of from 0 to say 0 that earlier that we decided. Suppose 0 to 5.5, then they will be equivalent to which color or which value 0 to zero point 0.5 will be equivalent to 0.25. So can you tell me if these values are 4.6, what should I actually note down in my computer? These values are actually 4.6. So after quantization they will map to which value? Yes, they will be 4.75. Others are, is it making sense for others even? Are you clear with? Okay, so please answer so that I can come to know whether you are getting it or not, right? So so this will be so what I will note down. Okay, so these values are 4.75. So this is 4.75. 4. So these are four all four samples are 4.75. What will happen to this value 1.2? What will happen to this value 1.2? This 1.2 will map to which value? So what I have first sample will have value 4.75. Second value will have 4.75. Third will be mapped to 4.75. Fourth will also map to 4.75. Then fifth, which is 1.2, will map to 1.25. That's true. Ashish. Then what about 6, which is 3.2, which will map to 3 will map to what? 3.2 will map the sixth sample, which is 3.2 will map to what? 3.25. That's true. It will map to 3.25. That's true. So in that way, I will have the mapping. Now what I will do? So now I have just 10 different values. Whether whatever the earlier it was, now I have 10 different values starting from 0.25, 0.5, I mean 0.25, 0.75, so on. Right? Now for 10 different values, I will use just 4 bits. Suppose it is 0.75 or 0.25, that means it is equivalent to 0.000. Okay. Now it is equivalent to 0.000. 0.5 or 0.75, it is equivalent to 0.001. Then point in that way, if I will go for 4.75, it is equivalent to 1010 because it is 10th sample, right? It will be 1010 or 1001. 1001, right? Because it is 10th one. Go for that. So suppose it is 1001, whatever it comes, like. So I will store 1001 for this, 1001 for this. So actually, it is 4-bit representation. If I will go for this image, so this pixel, here this pixel will have value 9. This pixel will have value 9. This pixel will have value 9. If I am going for 4-bit representation, then it is 1.2. 1.2, that is 1.25. That means what will be the value for 1.25? It will be 2. 1.25 will map with 2. Why? Because 1.2 is mapping with 1.25, which is having bit representation 0010. Right? So 10010 is equivalent to bit value 2. So I will make it right, it is 2. Then I will go for this is 3.2. So according to whatever bit number comes, that value will come here. In that way, I will write all the pixel values. And then if it is having lower value, I will map with some dark color with it. And that is the job of my display. What display will do? If received value is lesser, then map the dark color. So what display is actually doing, the entire continuous range of intensity is divided. The entire range of intensity is divided into into some regions. Like here, if I am having suppose I am using what you can say 10 bits. If I am using 10 values, 4 bits, 10 values only. So what I will do, entire range from black to white is divided into 10 different intensities, and the darkest intensity is mapped with the lowest number. Okay, so that process of converting these numbers, this process of converting these numbers into bit. So what is that actually? What that process includes? That process includes, first of all, you have to sample the values. So I will have different values: 4.6, 4.75, 4.2, like that. All the values I will have, and then I will divide the entire range from 0 to 5 into discrete set of interval. And for each interval, I will decide one value. Or suppose I have decided mid value, so I will decide one value for that interval. In that way, I will be able to take discrete values like this. Only fixed values will happen. Only fixed values will take place, right? It will not be like any random value here can take place. Only fixed range, only this range is possible, this range is possible, right? But it is not like intermediate ranges are possible. Okay, so that process is sampling. First you have to sample and then you have to quantize. And then you have to use display. What display will do? That it will map the darkest intensity with the lowest number that you of the bit that you have obtained. Okay, so that process completes here. Okay, so now that process, that block diagram you can easily understand. So now analog to digital conversion I have. Now I have in terms of bits, right? Now I for with 0.25 I have 0000 value. For 0.75 I have 0001 value. So now I have bit representation. So now it is digital representation. So some phenomena occurred, then I sent, then I processed my signal in case needed. Then I converted to digital by through two process, sampling and quantization, and then my display. Then I went to display, and now that so the display will display with the color. Okay, so this is how the image is acquired. Any doubt till time? Any doubt in this process? Okay, so we will discuss on more details on these topics in the next lecture.
So hello everyone. So today we'll discuss one more topic related to lexical analysis. In the previous session we have gone through how to convert a finite automata into a regular expression through two different ways. One is Arden's theorem and another one was using a state elimination method. Now in this session we'll learn a new topic, that is we'll learn a finite state machine which produces output. So let me start the presentation. So basically what happens that normally whatever finite automata we have considered, so that finite automata does not have any output. We are always getting the output in terms of yes and no answer, whether the string is accepted by the machine or the string is not accepted by the machine. Now instead of that, what will happen that we are considering the one which is producing the output. So now for that purpose, we have two types of machines that are known as a Millet machine and another is known as Moore machine. These are two very popular machines that are very important. So today our focus will be on the finite state machines which produces the output, that is Millet machine as well as Moore machine. So out of these two, today we'll learn the Moore machine. Is it visible now? So finite automata are like computers in that they receive input and process the input by changing the states. The only output that we have seen in finite automata are they produce yes and no at the end of processing. So now we'll look at two more models that produce the output other than yes and no. So the first one is a Moore machine. Basically, a Moore machine is just a finite automata with two extra things. It has two alphabets, input alphabet and the output alphabet. Second is, it has an output letter associated with each state. The machine writes the appropriate output letter as it enters each state. Once you enter into a state, it will produce what? Output. That is the output alphabet. So here you can see in this example that in the state Q0, as you can see here, when you enter into a Q0, you are producing the output as 1. So you can see here, you have this extra 1 here. So this 1 is because you are entering into a Q0 state. When you want to process any input, you have to enter into a Q0 state first. So as you enter into a Q0 state, it will produce the output that is 1. Now from Q0 state, on input symbol A will go to Q1 and output generated will be 0. So here you can see we are getting this second element 0. Now from the Q1 state, on input symbol B, because second input character is B. So from Q1 state on input symbol B, again we'll go to Q1 state and output produced will be 0. That's why we are getting this 1 0 0. Now from the Q1 state on input symbol A, from Q1 state on input symbol A, we'll go to Q3 state and will produce the output as 1. That's why we are getting this 1. Now from the Q3 state on input symbol B, we'll go to this Q2 state and we will produce the output as 0. That's why this last 0 will come. In case of Moore machine, you can see our input alphabet having a length 4. There are 4 characters in input alphabet A, B, A, B. In the output, we have 5 characters. Later on, we can ignore this initial one. So this is a simple example. Now let us see that why it is important. This is just to show you that what the input and output in the Moore machine is. Now let us take a very well-known example. So we have this Moore machine which counts 0, 1. This machine counts 0, 1. So normally we know that we have already created this finite automata which ends with 0, 1. So now on the other hand, if I consider this, in this machine, the advantage is over here. You can see if I have the input like this 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So normally what will happen in the finite automata in FA, if I consider finite automata, then when you enter into a state C, if I ignore these other parameters, so first what will happen from state A on input 0 will go to B, then from state B on input 1 will go to C, again from C on input 0 will go to B, from B on input 1 will go to again C, from C on input 0 you will go to again B, again on input 1 you will get C. So you can see that finally you are getting the state as C, so you can say this string is accepted by the finite automata. But the problem is if I consider in that way, then I don't know how many zeros are there. If I want to count that how many 0, 1 are present. In the given input. In this given input, how many 0, 1 are present? Because what will happen in the finite automata, we are getting the answer is yes or no. Yes, string is accepted by the machine because it is ending with 0, 1. But how many times it has gone through the 0, 1? Or even if I enter the 0, 1, 0, then this string will end in state B. And our answer will be this string is not accepted by the machine. But still you can see there is the occurrence of 0, 1 present in this pattern. Even though this 0, 1, 0 is not ending with 0, 1, so finite automata will give the answer reject. Finite automata will reject this pattern 0, 1, 0. But this contains the 0, 1 pattern. 0, 1 is present in it. So if I want to count how many zeros and ones are there, I should go for a machine like a Moore machine. I cannot use the finite automata because finite automata cannot remember anything. It can only consider the current input symbol and the current state. So here I have to consider a Moore machine so that we can know that how many times 0, 1 is appearing in this diagram. So this diagram is almost similar to finite automata but with some changes. So now let us process this input using this machine. So now if I consider this 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, Here I will write the state, and here we'll consider the output. So now initially our state will be A, our output, because we are entering into this initial state. So it will be 0. Now from A on input 0, from A on input 0, we'll go to B. So we'll write B here. From A on input 0, we'll go to state B. And at that time, we'll produce the output as 0. Now from state B on input symbol 1, we'll go to C. So from B on input symbol 1, we'll go to C. We'll produce the output 1. Now from state C on input symbol 0, we'll go to B. We'll produce the output as 0. From B on input symbol 1, we'll go to C. We'll produce the output as 1. From C on input symbol 0, we'll go to B. We'll produce the output as 0. From B on input symbol 1, we'll go to C. We'll produce output as 1. So now you can see here, we have 1, 1, and 1. So basically it tells that in the actual pattern, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, which is our actual pattern. In this actual pattern, we have 3 occurrences of 0, 1, because we are getting 3 times 1 in the output. So this 3, 1 indicates that we are getting 3 times 1 in the output. Now you should feel that why we are writing A/0. So when I am writing 0 means what? At this point, we are not getting any output. It is not our desired output. When you are in state A, it is not our desired output. When you are in state B, it is not your desired output. When you are in state C, because when you reach to state C, you will get the pattern 0, 1. You will get this pattern 0, 1. At that time, you will reach to state C. So that's why here we'll write 1. So this 1 indicates that it is our desired output. We are getting 1. So that is one interpretation of this. Similarly, you can see when you reach C, you are getting the output 1. Again, when you go to state B, you are getting output 0, because this 0, 1, 0 is not our desired output. 0, 1, 0 is not our desired output, but 0, 1, 0, 1. So when you are getting 0, 1, it is again a complete pattern 0, 1. You will get 1. Similarly, at last, when you are getting 0, 1, you will get 1. So that's why along with this C state, we'll put the value 1. Because at this point, we are getting the desired output. We are getting the complete pattern 0, 1 once you are in state C. If you repeat, again you will get 0, 1 when you are in the state C. So that's why for state C, we'll write 1, while for all other states, we'll write 0. So I hope this simple example is clear, because they are similar to finite automata, but we have a modification. We are counting 0, 1. Our goal is we'll count the 0, 1 in the input pattern. We are not checking whether it is ending with 0, 1 or not. If our pattern is 0, 1, 0, still it will give me the answer. Let us see that A on input 0 will go to B, so output will be 0. From B on input 1 will go to C, output will be 1. From C on input 0 will go to B, output will be 0. So because we have one value in the output, so it indicates that in this pattern 0, 1, 0, there is one occurrence of pattern 0, 1. There is one occurrence of the pattern 0, 1 in this 0, 1, 0. So this is, we can say, augmented finite automata, better finite automata, which produces the output, So let us go for the next example. Yes, any query in this first example? Any query in the first example? Is it clear? How we'll count 0, 1 through this Moore machine? So now let us go for next example. Now here our goal is, we want to consider substring AAB. So now in this example, if I consider this pattern BAAB, so now we are not counting here, we are just checking for substring AAB. So don't mix with the previous one. In the previous example, our goal was to count the occurrence of 0, 1. In this example, we are just checking that is the substring AAB present? So now you can see this is our state, this is our input, and this is our output. So now initially in A we are having 0 because still we have not processed. The diagram is similar to my finite automata because initially if all the B will come, will remain in this state. When you get the first A, you will go to B. When you get the second A, you will go to C. When you get B, you will reach to D. And once you are getting the pattern A, B, whatever comes after it, whatever comes after the pattern A, B, you will remain in the state D. You will remain in the state D because you have achieved your goal. So now here if I consider from state A on input B, you will remain in a state A, you will produce the output 0. Now from state A on input A symbol, you will go to state B, you will produce output 0. From state B on input symbol A, you will go to state C, you will produce the output 0. Now from state C on input B, you will go to D, you will produce output 1. So here it will tell, because we are getting 1 in the output, there is a pattern substring AB in the given example. Now if I take this AB, AAB, another example. Let us consider state input as A, initial value as 0. Let us take another example for this input, state and output. So here it is your input, here it is your state, and here it is your output. So now from A, state on input A, you will go to B, you will produce the output 0. From state B on input A, you will go to state C, you will produce the output 0. From state C on input B, you will go to D, you will produce the output 1. Now from D, A, it is again D, you will produce the output 1. From D and A, again it is D, you will get the output 1. Now from D and B, you will remain a state D, you will produce the output. So now if you look at this, here we have two occurrences of AAB. So here we have two occurrences of AAB pattern. So here we are not counting, right? We are not counting AAB pattern. Otherwise, this is not the correct answer because this is giving us 4 ones. We don't have 4 occurrences of AAB pattern. We have only 2 occurrences of AAB pattern. Our goal is only to check that whether the substring AAB is there. So if you are getting a single one, if you get only single one, then also it is telling that there is an existence of AAB substring in the given input. So our goal is not to count AAB in the given example. So now if I want to count AAB, then this diagram of Moore machine will not work. And again you can see we have taken only one in the state D. Reason is we are getting the pattern AB once you reach the state D. We are writing 1 in the state D because we are getting the pattern AB once you reach to state D. So now if I want to count the occurrence of AB, so now we have this modified diagram. This will count the substring AB. So you can see A, from state A on input A you will go to B, from state B on input A you will go to C. Now from state C on input B you will go to D. So up to this it is correct. You can see the difference. Only here we don't have a self loop on state D. Here we don't have a self loop on state D because you want to count AAB. So once you get the first AB, if again A will come, you have to go to state B. So this will give us A and B. So you are again getting the pattern and you can count it. Now after getting A, B pattern, if you get B, again you have to search from the beginning. With starting with A. So now let us consider the input. The same example which we have considered previously. A A, B, A, B. We have a state and we have output. So we have capital A as the initial state. As we are entering into a state A, we'll give the output as 0. Always we have one extra output symbol in the beginning, in the Moore machine. So now from capital A on input A, we'll go to B, will produce the output 0. From the state B on input A, we'll go to state C, will produce the output 0. From the state C on input B, we'll go to state D, will produce the output 1. Now you can see the difference. From state D on input A, we'll go to B, will produce output 0. From state B on input A, from state B on input A, we'll go to C, will produce the output as 0. Now from state C on input B, we'll go to state D, will produce the output as 1. So here it should be 1. So now you can see that when you are getting the complete pattern AB in the input, when you get the complete pattern AB in the input, it will produce 1 in the output. Similarly, when you get another pattern AB in the input, you will get the output as 1. So this tells that we have two occurrences of AAB. We have two occurrences of the pattern AAB in this example. So you can see that the previous finite automata which we have used with some modification as a Moore machine will not count the occurrences of substring AB. It just tells that the substring AB is present. If I want to count a substring present in the given diagram, I have to use this another Moore machine with some modified input and output arrows. So what is the advantage? That even though our pattern does not have only AB, it has some additional parameters, then additional characters like this A, B, A. Still we can use this kind of Moore machine. From capital A on input A, we'll go to B, we'll get 0. From B on A, C, again we'll get 0. From C on B, it is D, we'll get 1. From D and A, it is B and 0. So still you can see here that we are getting 1 in the output. We are getting 1 in the output. So that it tells that in this input pattern, A, B is present. A, B is present. Even though it is not ending with A, B, but it is just checking the occurrence of A, B in the given Moore machine. So you can use a Moore machine to count the occurrences of the given pattern. So these are the two very simple examples which you can clearly relate with your finite automata. Now let us see some more interesting examples. Okay, now in this, our goal is not to count the occurrences of the particular pattern, not to check whether the given pattern is present or not. So our answer will not in terms of count, our answer will not be finding the occurrence of the pattern. Our goal is we want to complement the given number. So we have 3 states. From state A, when you get the input 0, you will go to state B and you will produce the output 1. So you can see the impact. Our input is 0, will producing the output 1. From state A on input 0, you will go to B, will produce the output 1. So 0 will be converted to 1. This self loop will do the same thing. This 0 will be converted to 1. Now similarly, from state A, when you get the input 1, you will go to state C, and because input is 1, you will produce the output as 0. So 1 will be converted to 0. And this self loop does the same thing. Every time when 1 encounters, it will convert to 0. Now also you can see from the state C on input 0, From state C on input 0, we'll go to state B. So you can get the result. From state C on input 0, you will go to B, you will produce 1. So 0 will be converted to 1. Similarly, from state B on input 1, you will go to C. So this 1 will be converted to 0. So that is how always you are getting for input 1 output as 0 and for input 0 output as 1. So let us see the example. Let us take the example of 0, 1, 1, 0. We have A initially 0. So that's why you can see the role of 0 and 1 here. It is somewhat different. From the state A on input 0, you will go to B, you will produce the output as 1. Now from state B on input 1, you will go to C, you will produce the output as 0. Now from state C on input 1, from state C on input 1, you will get the output as 0. So from state C on input 1, you will go to the state C itself and the output will be 0. Now from state C on input 0, from state C on input 0, you will go to state B and you will produce the output as 1. So now if I discard this thing, then you can see for 0, 1, 1, 0, we are getting 1, 0, 0, 1. So it is 1's complement. 0 is converted to 1 and 1 is converted to 0. That is how we'll get the 1's complement of a binary number. So basically you can see the Moore machine is more powerful as compared to finite automata. In finite automata we are not getting these things. We are only getting the answer in terms of zeros and in terms of yes and no. If the string is part of the language, we are getting the answer as yes, accepted state, or if the string is not part of the language, we are getting the answer as a rejection state, that is no. So as compared to that, this is a more powerful machine. So now let us go for more interesting example. Here we want to count the occurrence of 1101. I have one additional keyword here, a non-overlapping pattern. So as you can see in this example, 1101 and 1101, we are considering this as a non-overlapping case. When 1101 is non-overlapping, we are using this Moore machine. So you can see the input 1101 and again we have 1101. So it is a non-overlapping pattern. We are getting 1101 twice. So now from the state A, if it begins with 0, we'll stay in the state A. And here we have not we didn't get the actual pattern, so we are producing 0. Now from A, when you get 1, we'll go to B. Still we have not reached the end of the required pattern. Our output value will be 0. From state B on input 1, we'll go to state C and you will get the output 0 because still we have not reached the end of the pattern. Now from C on input 0, we'll go to state D. Here also we have not reached the end of the pattern, so output is 0. From D on input 1, we are getting E state and we are producing the output value as 1. Because in the state E, we are getting this complete pattern 1, 1, 0 and 1. So we are getting this complete pattern in the state E. Once you get 1101, once you get this 1101, now it is a non-overlapping pattern in this example. So now if you get again 1, you will go to state B. You will go to state B using 1 and then so we are getting this 1 extra 1 as of after 1101, after 1, 1, 0, 1. When you get the 1, because it is a non-overlapping pattern, when you get again a 1, you will come here to state B. Again, you will get the pattern 1, 0, 1. Because it is a non-overlapping pattern. And you will traverse from B to C C to D and D to E, and you will reach to state E, which is the state having a value 1. So here you can see that in all this Moore machine, we don't have accepting state, but we have the output, which is important. Through output, we come to know that it is working properly or not. There is no accepting state in the Moore machines. Now also you can see that after the first pattern, after the first one from state A, if you encounter 0, then again you have to search back to the pattern, so you will go to state A. Similarly, if after 2 1, if you get the third one like this, 11101, then still it is having a valid occurrence. So first one will go to state B, second one will go to state C, third one will remain in the state C, and you can further continue with the pattern. So that's why there is a self loop in the state C. And similarly, after state D, if you encounter 0, again you have to search for the pattern from the beginning. Also from the state E, when you encounter 0, again you have to search for the pattern from the beginning. So that's why output arrows are there from state D and state E to state A on input 0. So now let us consider this example. Initially we are in the state A, our output is 0. Now when you go through the first 0, you will remain in a state A and you will produce the output as 0. Now when you encounter 1, so from state A on input 1, from state A on input 1 you will go to B and you will produce the output as 0. So we have encountered this 3. Now from state B on input 1 we will go to state C, we will produce the output as 0. From state C on input 0 we will go to state D, we will produce the output as 0. From state D on input 1 we will go to state E, we will produce the output as 1. From state E on input 1 we will go to state B, we will get the output as 0. From state B on input 1 we will go to state C, you will produce the output as 0. From state C on input 0 we will go to state D, you will produce the output as 0. From state D on input 1 you will get the output as state as E and you will get the output value as 1. So now if I consider this input output patterns, you can see we have 2 occurrences present in the given pattern. That's why we have 1 and 1. So we have 2 occurrences of the pattern and it is a non-overlapping pattern. Here we are considering a non-overlapping case for 1101. And we are getting output as this, having 2 ones. The first one indicating the first occurrence of the pattern 1101 and second one indicates the second occurrence of the pattern 1101. So I hope this example is clear that how we are getting the occurrences of 1101 and which is a non-overlapping occurrence. Any doubt up to this? Any query up to this? Yes, is this clear? Any query in this? Okay. So now let us see that if we have overlapping occurrence, if we have an overlapping occurrence, as you can see here, it is 1101 and we have 1101. You can see now we have overlap. This one is overlapped. The last one of the first pattern, the last one of this first pattern is also the first element of the second pattern. So last one of the first pattern is also the first element of the second pattern. We have overlapping 1. So now you can see the difference in the diagram. 1, 1, 0, 1. So if I compare this diagram with the previous case, you can see this is the previous case, non-overlapping. These all are same. Only difference is in this one. This one is different because we are considering the overlapping pattern. All the remaining things are same. So in the overlapping case, you can see this one is here. It is going to state C. In the previous case, this one is going to state B. This one was going to state B. So now let us see that from the state A on input 0, we are going to state A and we are getting this 0. Now from state A on input 1, we'll go to state B and we'll produce the output as 0. From state B on input 1, we'll go to state C, we'll produce the output as 0. Now from state C on input 0, we'll go to D, we'll produce the output 0. From D on input 1, we'll go to E, we'll produce the output as 1. Now from E, here there is a difference. From E on input 1, we'll go to C. Okay, you can see the difference because we already considered the previous one. So now in this pattern, we require the remaining pattern 1, 0, 1. Previous one is already there. So no need to traverse this path. No need to traverse this one. This one is already available from the previous one. So now from state C on input 0, we'll go to D, we'll produce this 0. And now from state D on input 1, we'll go to E, we'll produce 1. So you can see that because of this overlapping pattern, because of this overlapping patterns, we have a different finite automata diagram for a Moore machine as compared to previous one. Because all these Moore machines are nothing but a finite automata with output. So you can say that they are also a finite automata diagrams with output. So you can clearly see the difference that here we are getting this one and this one, because here 1101 the pattern will end and again this 1101 pattern will end. So you can see the output will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and one more, 9 elements, one extra, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And also keep in your mind that we don't have any accepting state in the Moore machine. Our goal is to produce the output, and always output have one extra output character in the beginning. We have always one extra output character in the beginning. So you can see the difference between this overlapping and non-overlapping thing. Yes, any query up to this? So now let us take one more interesting example of this. So here our goal is replaces the first one with 0 from every substring starting with 1. Replaces the first one with 0 from every substring starting with 1. So 3 examples are given here. So now if I consider this one, then it has to consider every substring starting with 1. So first you should know that how many substrings are there in it. So now if I start from here 0, our interest is in the first one. Our interest is in the first one. So if we start from 0, we'll proceed further and we'll consider a substring starting with 1. So here we can say it is the beginning. This substring starts with 1. So replaces the first one with 0. So this first one should be replaced with 0. But how long we come to know that it is the substring? So we have to proceed further. It is a substring starting with 1. Then we are getting some zeros. So up to this, it is treated as a one substring. It will start from this one because we are considering the first one. From the every substring starting with 1. So this is a substring starting with 1. The first one will be replaced with 0. And this substring will continue. This is a complete substring. We are getting some zeros, so all will be a part of the substring. Then after 0, when you get 1, it is considered as another substring. This is the string 2. This is a substring 2. This is your substring 1. So now you can see the impact. The first element of the first substring is converted to 0. The first element of the second substring is also converted to 0. Now if I consider the second example, we'll start from here 0, 0, 0, 0, no impact. When you get the first one, it is the beginning of a substring 1, 0, 0. Because we have encountered 0, this is the end of the substring. Again, we have this 1, which is the beginning of the second substring, and it will continue. So again we have here two substrings, 3 zeros and this one. So 3 zeros and this one, this is converted to 0. Again 2 0, again 2 0, and then this 0. This one is converted to 0. So 0 1 1 0, 0 1 1 0. So you can see again we have two substrings here. Now let us take the third example. So most important part here is we should consider which are the actual substrings in the given pattern. Once you know the substrings, you can construct a Moore machine for it. So now it starts with 1. So definitely it is the beginning of the first substring. 1 1 1 0 up to this. Now again 1 is encountered. It is the beginning of the second substring 1 0. After 0 again it is a new thing. So it is the beginning of the third substring. So you can see first one is converted to 0, then 1 1 0 as it is. Then again the beginning of the second substring, so it is converted to 0. So 0 0, and this is also 0. This is the one of beginning of the third substring, so it is converted to 0. You can see this 0 1 0. And for this 0 1, you can see the impact here. It is converted to 0 0. So here we have three substrings that are starting with 1, and we want a Moore machine that will convert only this to 0. So now our first goal is we want to consider if there is 0, no need to worry because we are only interested in the 1. When you get the first one, it should be converted to 0. So when you get the first one, it should be converted to 0. We'll go to this state. Okay, now once you get the first one, if the second one will come, because it is a part of this, it is a part of the substring, so no need to do anything. No need to do anything, whether it is the second one, third one, it should be as it is. So now when I get the 1, it should be as it is. So first one will be converted to 0, second one will be converted to 1, third one will be converted to 1. Okay, when we will get a 0, as you know that first one is converted to 0. Now these two ones are as it is. Now this 2 0. Once you are getting a 0, that 0 must be as it is. So for that, we'll write here that when you encounter a 0, it should be converted to 0 and will go to this state A. Now, again, when you get the first one, you are here. So now we can validate the output. From this state, we have considered 0 and 1. From this, we have considered 1. Okay, now after first one, if 0 will come, again 0 should be considered as 0, no change. So from B, we'll also consider output 0 will go to state A. So let me show you the complete diagram, clear diagram. This is anyway complete diagram, but let me show you the clear diagram for this example. I hope you understood the process, that how we are getting these things. So now let me show you the answer here. Same thing is there, no change. Let us trace for the first example. So now let me write here. It is 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. We are in state A. It is initially 0. So A on 0 will remain in A because it is 0, no need to do anything. A and 1, definitely it is the first one, will convert into 0. So B and 0. Now from B and 1, if it is the second one, will go to C and output will be 1, no change. C and 1 again. So C, now C and 0 will go to A, 0, A and 0, again A and 0. Now A and 1, B and 1. So you can see the output we are getting is 000. So this first 0 will ignore because it is the extra. So it is 00, then 11, and this last one. A on 1 will go to B, will produce the output as 0, as we know, because it is the first one. So from A on input 1 last, A and input 1 will go to B, definitely our output will be 0 at that time. So we are getting this 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. So similarly, you can trace for other examples. So far we have done examples which are simple examples, because we have either 3 or 4 states, we have very simple substrings. Now we have very interesting and complex examples related to this. So let us consider this. We have a Moore machine which count strings 0, 1 or 1, 0. We have a Moore machine that counts strings 0, 1 or 1, 0. So 0 and 1. So you can see in A output is 0 because still we have not acquired the pattern. In B output is 0, we have not achieved the pattern. When you reach to D, so 0, 1. So we are getting the output as 1. Similarly from A, when you encounter 1, you will go to C, the opposite pattern 1, 0. Again output is 0. We have not achieved the full pattern. Now from C on input 0 will go to E, output is 1. So 1, 0. So we are getting the complete pattern. So our output will be 1 in the state E and D. Now you can see that this also includes overlapping pattern. We are considering this with overlapping. Keep in your mind, we are considering this with overlapping. So now 0, 1, 0, it includes 0, 1 and 1, 0. So now you can see the move 0, 1 and 0. So 0, 1, 0 will go to E. So it should give the output count as 2. We should get the count as 2 because we have two patterns. 0, 1 is also there and 1, 0 is also there. So we have overlapping patterns here. Similarly, if I consider 1, 0, 1, same scenario is there, 1, 0 and 0, 1. 1, 0 and 0, 1 will end up in D. Again, we have overlapping patterns. 1, 0 and here 1. So 1, 0, 1, again an overlapping pattern. So now if I consider other scenarios, let us consider the scenario of 1001, non-overlapping pattern. Because when you are accepting overlapping patterns, definitely we should also include non-overlapping patterns as well. So 1001. So you can see 1, 0, again 0 and 1. So now again the count will be 2 here and here. This is what will get the output 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, because we have two patterns. One is ending here, another is ending here. So we have two patterns 1, 0, 0, 1. Similarly, we can consider 0, 1, 1, 0. Let us consider one more in this 0, 1, 1, 0. So again we have in this, if I consider, then 0, 1, then we have 1 and 0. So we'll get E as the final thing. And again output will be like this 0, 1, 0, 1. We have non-overlapping pattern present. So this supports overlapping as well as non-overlapping both. So now let us trace for the given example. So we'll see that how many occurrences are there. From state A, initially it is 0. Now from A on input 0, will go to B, will produce the output 0. From state B on input 0 will go to B, will produce the output 0. From state B on 0 will go to B, will produce the output 0. From state B on input 1 will go to D, will produce the output 1. From state D on input 1 will go to C, will produce the output 0. From state C on input 0 will go to E, will produce the output as 1. From state E on input 1 will go to D, will produce the output as 1. From state D on input 1 will go to C, will produce the output as 0. From state C on input 1 will go to C again, will produce the output as 0. From state C on input 1 will go to C, will produce the output as 0. From state C on input 1 this is what we have done. Okay, now from state C on input 0 will go to E, will produce the output as 1. From state E on input 0 will go to B, will produce the output as 0. From state B on input 1 will go to D, will produce the output as 1. From D on input 0 will go to E and will produce the output as 1. And from E on input 0 will go to B, will produce the output as 0. So now if you consider this whole pattern, we can see that we have how many occurrences of the pattern? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have total 6 occurrences. So let us see that is it there. So let us see 0, 1, yes. Then it is 1, 0. Here it is overlapping, so 0, 1. So 3 occurrences are here 0, 1, 1, 0 and 0, 1. Also you can see when there is overlapping occurrence, you will get this together. So 1, 0, 1, 1. Now here as we proceed further, it is 1, 0, 0, 1 non-overlapping occurrence. So you can find a gap, and 0, 1, 0. So it is an overlapping occurrence. So there is no gap over there. So when you don't find any gap in the output, you are getting 2 consecutive ones. And if it is a counting thing, that means there is mostly overlapping occurrence, because you will always search for a pattern of length 2 or more than 2. So normally you will find this kind of thing. When there is a pattern of length 2 and there is a overlapping occurrences, then you will not find any gap in the output in case of overlapping occurrences, because here the length is 2. So you will get the immediate presence of 1. So this is a very interesting example. I hope you understood it. Now let us take one more. We want to count the strings 0, 1 star 0. So far we are only searching for a pattern having a specific pattern. Now here all these patterns are valid patterns. If 0, 0 is there, it should give the count as 1. If 0, 1, 0 is present, we should get the answer as 1. If 0, 1, 1, 0 is there, we should get the answer as 1, because all are valid things. So any pattern which satisfies this regular expression should be counted. So if we take the example like this, 0, 0, and then 0, 1, 0, and 0, 1, 0. Let me have this overlapping pattern so it will be more clear. So 0, 0. So let me write in that way so it will be more easy to understand, and it is also interesting. 0, 0, then 1, 0. So now here you can see we have a 0, 0 pattern, which is a valid pattern. Then if I consider 0, 1, 0, which is also a valid pattern, then 0, 1, 0. So we have total 3 valid patterns in this. So now you can see from state A, when you get the first 0, we will go to B. Still we have not got the pattern, so output will be 0. Now from state B, on input 0, we'll go to state E and we'll produce the output as 1, because we are getting this pattern 0 and 0. 0, 0 is a valid pattern, so here we are getting output as 1. Now in between 0 and 0, if we are getting this 1 star, so now let us consider in that way that first 0 will come, then if the 1 will come, we'll go to state C. Now when you are getting 0, 1, it is not the complete pattern, so output will be 0. If you get more occurrences of this 1, you will remain in the same state. You will remain in the same state. When you get this 0, so 0, 1, 0, or 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, you will go to state E, you will get the output as 1. Once you are reaching in state E, if you get 0, you will remain in this state, because 0, 0, it is a valid pattern. 0, third 0, it is again a valid pattern. So that's why there is a self loop in state E. So now let us trace for this example in which we are interested. Let us trace this. So you can see that we are now creating a Moore machine for the regular expression, not for a simple pattern. We'll start with E, with A, and input output state as 0. Now from A and 0, we'll go to B, we'll produce the output state as 0. Now from B on input 0, from B on input 0, we'll go to E and we'll get 1. Now from E on input 1, we'll go to C, we'll produce the output as 0. Now from C on input 0, again we'll go to E, we'll get the output as 1. Now from E on input 1, we'll go to C, we'll produce 0. From state C on input 1, again it is C, we'll produce 0. Now from C on input 0, we'll get E, we'll produce 1. So you can see we are getting answer as 1, 1, 1. So this will be cancelled. So now 0, 1. So this is the first pattern. Then we are getting again 1 here. So this is the overlapping pattern 0, 1, 0. That's why 1 is here. And then last here 0, 1, 0. That's why we have this third one. So we are getting 3 patterns over here. Any query up to this? So what you can do is, based on what we have done today, yes, any query up to this? Yes, any query up to this? Okay, if there is a 0, 0, 0, let us consider this example. If there is a 0, 0, 0, then what will happen? Okay, can you tell what will happen if there is a 0, 0, 0? Yes, if there is a 0, 0, 0, what will happen in this? So definitely first 0, 0, we have one pattern 0 and 0. It is counted as 1, and then we have another 0, 0. It is 2. So what should be your answer in that case, ideally? So from A and first 0 it is B. A and first 0 it is B, we'll get the 0. Clear? From B and 0 it is E, we'll get 1. Again E and 0 it is E and 1. So we are getting the answer as 1, 1. We have two occurrences. One is this 0, 0, another is this 0, 0. Yes, any query in this? Yes. Any query in this now? So the three examples are there on the screen. You can try out these three examples. Right? Because if you try these examples, then and then you can understand more about these Moore machines. Right? So in the next session, we'll consider the another machine that is known as a Mealy machine. So we'll see that how we can construct these Mealy machines in the next session. Right? So try to solve these three examples so it will be more clear to you.